Lions fans, and welcome back to yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. I'm your host, David T. Pike, and as always, we're diving in. So, here's the thing, folks. Again, I know that for a lot of Lions fans, this has been a free agency period. This offseason has really tried your all's patience. I know it has really gotten under some Lions fans' skin, and I know for a lot of Lions fans, this has just not exactly been the way they thought that this free agency period, this offseason was going to go. Because we've heard the rumors, we've heard the reports, we've had talks, we've had speculation. Because again, this offseason, it looked like the Lions were going to make a lot of big news. They were going to make a lot of big moves because it was like, hey, the Lions, they're ranked top 10 in the amount of available cap space. Hey, the Lions, they're one of the best teams in the NFL. A lot of players are going to want to play for us. Hey, the Lions are linked to these conversations to potentially trade for players like L'Jarius Sneed, like for Greg Newsome. It seemed like the Lions were primed to have a really big offseason, that they were primed to go out and make some splash moves. They were primed to go out and make some massive moves that were going to grab the attention of the NFL. However, though, I'm going to say this right now. I think in this case, Lions fans got a little bit ahead of the actual horse and cart. And I'm saying that and to put this in perspective, like, we heard what we wanted to hear and we kind of ran with it. And I understand that right now is probably not something Lions fans want to hear, but let's understand the reality of the situation. I'm going to just say this. Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell, once again, have remained true to their word. Again, I have said this before multiple times when I've talked about Jared Goff in the past, and I'm not going to go into that tangent. All I'm going to simply say is this. If you take a look at all the Brad Holmes conferences, you take a look at all the Dan Campbell conferences, and you stack those up, you would be hard-pressed to find a situation where Brad Holmes or Dan Campbell did not one time tell the truth or did not one time tell you, hey, this is how we're going to proceed. Because I have said this more times than I care to recollect. Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell are probably the most transparent, most integrity-based GM head coach tandem in the entirety of the NFL. If they say something, that is the God's honest, 100% bedrock truth, and that is what is going to happen. Because to them, they are all about transparency. They are all about making sure that, hey, nobody can say that we're trying to play mind games, we're trying to be, deceptive, we're trying to do something that is not a part of who we are and what we're trying to do. And if you think about it, this offseason, like I said in the previous episode, I'll put that episode link back up at the top. The Lions very much revealed what they were going to do this offseason. They very much said, listen, this is what we're doing. We're not hiding what we're going to do. We're not going to try and be deceptive about our plans or what we're going to do with this offseason. And they said it multiple times. But the biggest time I can think of how both of those two men made it abundantly clear what they were going to do was when they said this. They're like, yeah, we're not going to go out and we're not going to make splash free agency signings. We're not going to go out there and we're not going to have free agency be our end-all be-all. They're like, listen, we're going to be selective. We're going to be purposeful with who we go out and sign in free agency. But again, the thing that we have to put into perspective here is that the Lions have built this team. They have built this roster. They have built this culture through the draft. Think about it. All of the Lions players that we have come to know and love over the last 3 years, virtually none of them have come through free agency or trade. The only ones that I can realistically think of that free agency-wise and trade-wise that we can say that, hey, they're now an integral part of the team, they're now a core part of the team, are guys like Jared Goff, Alex Anzalone, Graham Glasgow, and a few others like David Montgomery. So it's like, okay, that's your primary base of, hey, guys that you went out in free agency and you acquired, or you acquired through a trade that are now an integral part of the team. But when you take that short list of guys that you've acquired via trade or free agency, and then you stack it up to the literal laundry list of guys that Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell have acquired through the draft that make up the core, the integral part of this team, it does not hold a candle. It does not even come close to stacking up. That right there should have been the ultimate indicator. That right there should have been like, listen, anybody that is expecting that the Lions are going to go out in free agency and just make splash signing after splash signing is kind of crazy. Now, I will admit this. I thought that maybe the Lions might make one splash signing. I was one of those guys that was like, hey, you know what? I'm not expecting Brad Holmes to go out and, just absolutely just break the bank and commit financial suicide to get all of these free agents. That just doesn't make any sense, especially when you got guys like Jared Goff, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Penei Sewell, Aiden Hutchinson, and all these other guys you're trying to keep in town. You can't do that. You have to have the money around to extend them. But I was like, is it possible that, Brad Holmes could go out and make one splash signing? Yeah, it's possible. That's why I thought that of all the free agents that the Lions could go after, it was going to be Danielle Hunter. I thought that they might want to go after him because adding Danielle Hunter, it just made too much damn sense based upon everything that we'd been told. The Lions tried to trade for Danielle Hunter before the trade deadline last year. There had been multiple reports that the Lions were in conversations with Danielle Hunter to try and bring him here. And then, like I said in my previous episode today, at the last minute, like 6:30, 7 o'clock last night, we found out he was going to go to the Houston Texans. So at that point, it was like, okay, the Lions passed on Christian Wilkins. They passed on, Robert Hunt. They passed on Danielle Hunter. The Lions have pretty much said exactly what they said earlier. They're not going for big fish. They're not going to go out and get these guys that are going to literally break the bank, that are going to cost an arm and a leg. The Lions are doing exactly what they said they're going to do. They're being purposeful. They're being methodical. They're being deliberate and precise about who they want to bring in. Now, again, I know for some people that might sound all well and good and all, but again, the thought process for some Lions fans is that, but if you want to take that next step and get to the Super Bowl, you eventually have to open up the purse strings. You eventually have to go out and make a big-time move. And again, like I said in my previous episode, you have to think about it from the perspective of Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell. They literally were 1 quarter away from getting to a Super Bowl this last season when they got to the NFC Conference Championship game. Is that really justification or warrant to go out and spend big money on a guy like Danielle Hunter? No, not really, but if you wanted to, you could do that. But we know that the Lions are not going to do that. And it's wishful thinking that they were going to do that. And I myself got caught up in it. All I'm simply trying to say is this. For Lions fans, I think we have to come to the realization that, hey, this is now the third or fourth offseason that we've seen what Brad Holmes has done. And it does not matter if Brad Holmes has a little bit of cap space or, as we have in this case, a lot of cap space. He's not changing his process for anything, folks. Brad Holmes is sticking to his guns. And again, like I said with this episode, they're staying true to their word. They are going to do what they said they're going to do, and they're not changing it for anybody or for nobody. For me, that right there is the mark of true integrity. It's like, listen, you stick to your guns, you stick to your process, you stick to what got you here above all else, and you don't start doing a flip-flop notion just because that's the popular idea. So for me, it's like, I have a lot of respect for Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell. I respect them. I respect their process. Again, as a human, I can say I trust them, I respect them, but that doesn't necessarily mean I'm always going to agree with them. It doesn't necessarily mean I'm always going to be like, hey, I don't have a question in my mind about what's going on. Again, for this offseason, I have tried my best to be as neutral as possible when it comes to most of the decisions. I've not always done the best job with that. Again, I wasn't very keen on the Emmanuel Mosley signing, and I know for another signing, the Marcus Davenport signing, that was a signing that I'm also kind of having a little hard time dealing with. But it's like, listen, I trust what Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell are doing because they're the guys that got us here. They're the guys that have turned around the franchise that everybody said was never, ever going to figure it out. And they have done it in literally 3 years when everyone was thinking it was going to take much, much longer than that. So it's like, listen, understand what I'm saying with this episode. The Lions are true to their word, and they have maintained themselves, and they have gotten where they've gotten by being true to that plan that they have. So it's like, listen, trust Holmes, trust Campbell. Don't start trying to jump ship now. But anyway, folks, Just wanted to make this episode really quickly, so I'm going to say thank you all for watching in another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. If you like what you saw, by all means, highly encourage you all to do one of these three things: like, comment, and subscribe. If by chance you subscribed in the past, forgot to do so at the time, or just subscribed, not had a chance to do so, again, please subscribe. It helps out the channel, and I'm thankful for every one that I can get. But also, make sure you hit that bell notification icon at the bottom of the page, so that way you never miss any more content that I push out. And I also want to encourage y'all, please share this content with your Lions friends and family members. Share here on YouTube, share it on Twitter, share it on Facebook, share anywhere and everywhere you can with everybody and anybody that you can. The more we share it, the greater the channel spreads, the greater the channel grows. And with that being said, to everybody, I hope you all are having a great day. Hope you're all having a blessed day. Hope you all have something that makes you smile and makes you happy. And I also hope you enjoyed the content. With that being said, I just want to say to everybody, God bless. And until the next time we meet, I'll see you all in the next episode.